welcome back to A Better World. This is your host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today we have invited back Thomas Hubl, who is here from both Germany and Israel, back in New York. We interviewed him some months ago when he was passing through the United States, and in short, we just had such a lovely and dynamic dialogue that I really wanted him to come back and talk with us all about his work, which is getting more and more popular in the United States. It's already very popular in Europe and becoming so also in Israel. And he is a shining light and bringing a lot of awareness and intelligence, love, and consciousness to the people that work with him. So, Thomas.
Hello.
Hello. Good to have you back.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Isn't this fun?
Very much so.
So if we could have captured all of our conversations on video, my God, people would go,
yeah, right.
you know? Yeah. So why don't we just sort of begin at the beginning, you know, like Zen mind, beginner's mind idea. Why don't you tell us all about how you feel your work is helping to illuminate people? How it's helping to awaken the consciousness of people.
So basically the core teaching, of course, is what all mystical traditions somehow teach in a way, is the awakening and bringing more awareness to the structures of consciousness, to the structures of my mind, my emotions, my body, that I am attached to, and that I...
Sort of like how we work.
How we work,
yeah.
Right. And what are the mechanisms that I say, it's me.
Yes, exactly.
So, and this me is composed by many, many things. So the more I have an awareness of what composes this me, the less I am trapped in it. The less I have an awareness, the more it's me, and half of the part is unconscious or even more. So, and many things I don't see because I'm not there yet. So there's a small fraction of the world that I see. So, and the core teaching maybe is to open the awareness to all the things that I don't see about myself, about the world, about others, about reality, and how can we wake up and wake up and wake up more to more profound levels of life, basically. And by this develop two things: the ability to rest as nothing and the ability to live fully. And that nothing and fullness is not to. This, I think, is the basic teaching. Because often we say, okay, spiritual teachings are about discovering peace. But I think peace is only one part, and life and the noise of the world seems like opposed to peace sometimes. Like stillness and noise are not two. And this is real peace. So we are looking at this, what in the Tao Te Ching is also written, bring things in order before they exist. And so when you explore the sentence, who are you before you exist, and how things come into life and express themselves completely. And I believe that every human being is a moving intelligence, that if we express ourselves completely, we would say we are fully happy. And if we are stuck, or if we are resisting life, we would say we are suffering. So how can we become aware of how we are suffering, and by this express ourselves, bring our gifts to the world, create societies that are more functional, resting more in ourselves, being more happy, and at the same time transcending more and more all the structures of life and somehow including them in our awareness. So maybe in a few words this would be the essence.
The nugget, the essence, right? So inside of that, I mean, also in the Tao Te Ching is this idea of being in action in the world, but maintaining a sense of inner peace and stillness.
Right.
So I agree with you completely about the not two. And at the same time, I think that they can coexist at the same moment.
Right, this is what I mean with not two. If they are not two, it's not either or. Either I'm at peace or I'm living my life. I'm fully, because most of the people that will hear this program are living on the marketplace. They are not living in a cave in the Himalayan mountains. You know, our spiritual practice here is a spiritual practice on the marketplace, with relationship, with work, with expression in the world, with
in
fears,
action, in motion, right?
Yeah. And I think it's a very demanding practice, but it's also a very beautiful practice because we are literally contributing and participating in the world while we are awakening in this world. And therefore I say that peace and action are not two.
Yes, I get it.
Ideally. And there are many spiritual seekers that just look for silence, and there are many people that just are looking for life and entertainment and action.
Yes.
And there is something that is silence in movement and movement in silence.
There we go. Okay, got it. We're on the same page. I used to have a Tai Chi teacher down in Chinatown here in New York who taught me essentially that the practice of Tai Chi Chuan is a way of harnessing the stillness of meditation in movement.
Right.
So he always said this is a more advanced practice because you're not sitting in the Himalayas, or not even sitting in a quiet room just following your breath. You actually have to physically move and stay as inwardly quiet and still, as though you were on a cushion.
Right. And in life we are facing many challenging parts, and if I drop the idea that life is always a wellness spa, so life is sometimes good and sometimes it's difficult. And my awakening needs to be bigger than this. My primary focus needs to be awareness and consciousness. And this is bigger than feeling good or not feeling good. And by this I learn to transcend both of them.
Yes.
And I think this is a very challenging practice, and this is what also here refers to, because sometimes, especially on the marketplace, I will encounter more difficult, challenging situations, and they are actually the indicator of where my development is at.
Exactly.
Because in the easy times when we sit in the meditation space and we drop in, it's easy. But can I maintain a certain level of awareness also in the difficult or rough waters?
Exactly. That's the test of life.
Right.
You know, we talked about this last time a little bit too. One of my other teachers was George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. And that was another, I guess I always gravitated toward this idea of meditation in motion, because that too, he was really encouraging people to be in life and to be in the marketplace, and do your business, but maintain, you know, he talked about an inner unity of three-brained congruence, basically, where we become a unified field, our thoughts, our feelings, and our physical body being one, you know, same kind of idea.
Right, and this is also very much part of our practice, of our interpersonal practice, is how to synchronize spirit, body, mind, and emotions, and how to synchronize inside and outside.
Yes.
So when people, there are some people that wake up in the morning and with a yes, say, yes, I'm on the right place, I'm doing the right thing. It's sometimes easy, it's sometimes challenging, but I know I wake up with a yes. And I'm interested what composes someone that wakes up with a yes, opposed to someone that wakes up with a maybe or with a no.
Right, exactly.
You know, there are many people that wake up with a no to their life already in the morning. And how do we change a yes, a no, and a maybe to a yes?
Exactly.
How do we...
In other words, do I wake up and is the cup half full, a quarter full, or completely full?
Right.
You know, or empty, you know.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what is this idea of, like, people use affirmations and they may say to themselves yes, but internally they feel no.
Right.
How do you work with that?
Yeah, I don't give so much energy to affirmations. For me, more the authentic expression of people is important. So we are engaging in a very intense process with each other as spiritual practitioners, let's say. And so we create a strong container in order to find out what is the authentic energy, because I believe that every human being has an authentic core energy. And if this core energy is seen in children, in young people, in all of us, then it gets a feedback from life that is positive, and then we continue developing it. So we are all constantly in motion, and if this motion is supported, if this movement is supported, then we would say we feel seen, we feel deeply respected, we feel deeply in our element. And everybody has a bit of a different element.
Sure.
So I'm interested to not to put another makeup layer on top of it, but to reveal what is the original movement.
So the question then, Thomas, is our authentic self a yes in all cases? I.e., the idea of Buddha nature or basic goodness, it's oftentimes translated as, so that our true authenticity is good. It's a yes in the morning.
Right.
Are you saying that? And that anything that would be a maybe or a no is really a conditioning?
I would say that the authentic nature is aligned with the driving force of the universe. So the universe is moving, and we are part of this movement. So the universe is at the moment moving through us,
Sure.
and developing through us structures of consciousness.
Expressing through us.
So as long as I'm aligned with movement, because movement is intelligence, and intelligence feels good when it's moving.
Totally.
And the whole notion of suffering, I believe, is just a resistance to this movement. So if we say this, then the authentic movement is in alignment with the intelligence of the universe, and the less there is a friction, the more we have a yes. So we could say the authentic expression, if it's online, if it really moves, is a yes. So that and many of the great saints and spiritual teachers also said, and the mystics said, that the discovery of the divine is an unconditional bliss, is an unconditional yes, is the unconditional positivity of the universe, of the driving intelligence of the universe. And therefore I think that people that are in their creativity, in their flow, so they just wake up with a yes. This is the perfume of the divine is a yes. So if we are in it, then we just feel aligned with things, we want to participate, we want to contribute. We know that as grown-up people, we need, in order to live in a functioning society, we need to simply participate and contribute. And if we hold back from life, we will feel the effects in our bodies, in our emotions, in our thoughts. What I call the energy will go down. And when our energy goes down, we feel more depressed, we want to run away from life, we want to project ourselves into an imaginative future, and so we are not really here. People who have a yes, they are there where they are, because everything is here.
And it's also so much fun.
Right.
It's so much fun to be in the present when you're saying yes.
Right.
Because life is, and it creates this flow between inner and outer.
Right.
There's really a continuum. There's no recognition of a separation.
Right.
And that gives rise to the whole idea of synchronicity.
Right.
Because it's almost like you're in the depth of time and outside of time at the same time.
At the same time.
It's so interesting, yeah. No, I'm totally online with what you're saying. And but I wanted to ask, because some people feel when they wake up, since we're using that as sort of the guiding image, dragging a maybe or a no, or
Right.
And so the underlying what you and I are saying here, if people were to be able to touch their authentic self, they will wake up with a yes. Because it's like the Tao, since you made reference to the Tao Te Ching, one of my favorite poems, is all about flow and all about movement, which is an expression of nature's aliveness.
Right.
And so if we're connected to that energy, that flow, then we're constantly affirming life, basically.
Right.
We're in that flow of affirming life. Not an affirmation, but an affirming as a verb.
Right. Right. And I think what is very important here to say is, if someone wakes up with a maybe and a no, it's not a bad thing. Our mind might say now, and I may judge it as, oh, then I'm bad or I'm wrong. Or, no, it's not. This is already an interpretation of a state.
Yes.
So what we need to see is there are possibilities.
Exactly.
There are possibilities how to transform a maybe and a no into a yes. And this is the most exciting part, or this is a very exciting part of spiritual practice, is to learn that it doesn't matter where I start my walk from. I start here, and everybody has the possibility for this transformation. Because I often say like this, that life is like the sun is shining all the time. If many people sit with an umbrella and there is a shade, so it's not so bright. But this doesn't mean that the sun's not there.
Right.
With other words, we are always in the same distance to the divine or the essence or the unformed or the light or however we call it. But we might experience ourselves very separate, depressed, alone, fearful, whatever. But this is just our personal movie. But the personal movie is embedded in this big flow of life. So I always know it doesn't matter how good or miserable I feel, I'm always here. And this is a very good message.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't matter how my life is today, I know if I authentically start walking from here, and I really want to place the awakening into as the first priority in my life, everything will start to get better. Everything will start to rise. Even if I have difficulties, I will feel even better in difficulties once I'm getting more awake. Because I lose the priority to just feel good. And then my life will start to, as I call it, get more online. So more and more of my energy will flow, and therefore also outside in my life, more and more things will flow. And then we come to this synchronicity that you mentioned. So what's important for me to say here is that nothing is wrong. It's just, okay, where are we starting from? Yeah. Often I say, you cannot leave New York by flying out from Los Angeles. You know, many people also on the spiritual path, they read books about the spiritual messages of mystics and great saints, and then we already want to be there, but we are not. You know, we are where we are, and we start with the state of consciousness where we are. But this is the most authentic place to walk.
You're really quoting inherently another great Chinese aphorism, which is the greatest journey starts with the first step. You know, really, and it's right there.
And it's right there.
And it doesn't matter what age you are, what color you are, what anything, what city you're in. You know, of course, nothing is utterly unimportant. You said something really important, I felt, Thomas, when you mentioned this idea of kind of getting, how did you put it? You put it really nicely. Of becoming free, basically, of good and bad. Right. So you know, oh yes, you say I don't have to be feeling good all the time. Like I don't have to be attached to feeling good / pleasure, let's say,
right,
or as a state.
Right.
I can be happy, let's say, or have a sense of well-being, even in the midst of what we might refer to as physical pain,
right,
or emotional pain.
Right.
And we can have emotional pain without suffering either.
Right.
And that's another really interesting distinction.
Very important.
Yeah.
Very important, because if I let go of the resistance to how I feel,
yes,
because what makes me suffering is the resistance. I don't want to feel like this, therefore I'm suffering.
You pull yourself out.
But if people are in crisis in their relationship, in their work, with their jobs, with their inner psychology,
yeah,
this is a fact, and now it's important how I am with this fact. If I can allow this and find a yes to it, things are shifting, because I'm aligning with them. If I resist them, they will stay more on its place. So if something happens in my life and I feel very sad because I lose someone very important,
yeah,
so I can either suffer from it, or I can totally be with what's happening. And if I learn this, the sadness is not against me, the sadness is not a problem, the sadness is just a wave. The wave that's coming, the wave that's leaving.
A totally natural phenomenon.
Right. Some famous rabbi in the Hasidim movement said once that, listen, thoughts and feelings are like guests in your living room. They enter from one side and they leave on the other side. But you are the one who jumps on them and says, you are me. And like this you keep them in your living room. So thoughts are here to come, and these are not your thoughts, they're coming, right, and they're leaving. So I think if we manage to establish a practice in our everyday life, this we can do 24 hours a day, of coming and leaving and just being with it, then I think we will increase the radius of our awareness, because we don't focus it on this small me, and it will be there for everything. And everything, the me filters everything.
Well, totally. I know I want to thank that rabbi, alive or not, because that's a beautiful way of putting it. And, you know, it reminds me actually of the old Sufi idea of life is a bridge. Don't build a house on it. You know, from another kind of scalar point of view, a fractal point of view, it's another level of the macro to the micro, you know. I want to go back to something that you said, Thomas, that I really appreciated also, which is that when you sense the divine, it's blissful.
Right.
And I know, just on a very personal level, a lot of my day is in this state that is just divine. It's blissful. I feel sometimes that I was given an extra set of neurotransmitters, like endorphins, that allow me to just feel so good. And so I smile a lot, I laugh a lot, and even without those outer expressions, inwardly, I was describing to someone just earlier today as like the sound of a cat purring. You know, there's that funny sound of some contentment. Even though my life is as wild and wily and woolly as, you know, anybody's or more, but there's still this inner sense of I'm watching it happen, and I feel so happy to be alive. You know, that's amazing. You know,
yes.
What's amazing is just the acknowledgement of, in the midst of sometimes it could be called hell, I still feel grateful for being here.
Right, right.
The thing that saddens me, I'll tell you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say, that hurts me more than anything, it's like the earth is an extension of my own being, and when I see it being insulted by many things that go on her for the sake of the profit of a few people at the expense of the many, and of Earth herself, this living being, I feel like I'm almost getting injured. I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about that idea. It's like it's my universe, it's my Earth, and it's my life, and it's, you know, I've laid claim on some level that I'm so identified with the larger unity of all things that I feel somewhat injured and saddened by some of what goes on.
And I think on one hand it's literally true that more and more people will wake up to the fact that it's not just a cognitive idea that the planet is also our body, and that my body is not just this what's sitting here. This is part of this larger field that we call planet, and the planet is again a part of my body. So there are people that literally, not just cognitively, have the conscious awareness. The radius of responsibility is simply much wider than just a small me and a small family. So, and if this happens, spiritual awakening happens, then I naturally care for a much wider radius. And still, within this there might be some identification, but on the other hand, the people who have more responsibility, in a healthy way, responsibility for the whole, so they include a much wider radius of awareness into their actions. So when the planet is part of your awareness, you will naturally care for it, and you will also feel what's happening in there. So therefore many great healers or many people that wake up go through a stage of pain while they wake up, because they don't just feel their personal pain, they feel literally the pain of the world. And then they even grow their awareness beyond that, and they learn to integrate this. But by this they become great healers of a collective or a much wider field, because they learn to include this in their awareness. So I think on one hand it's a very important stage, And I think many things are happening on the planet that come from what I would call ignorance or self-identification, and therefore we don't see many effects of our actions.
Exactly.
And it's literally time to wake up from this. So
Literally.
and the crisis that is appearing more and more is just the consequence of an evolutionary pressure that we all as a collective need to develop, but we do not do it in many cases.
Yes.
So, and therefore the pressure like water builds up, and we see that some structures are not functional, but we still continue doing them because they are more safe, they're more secure, and they are habits that we are addicted to. And I think that the time is ripe that many people learn to see what are the habits that I keep doing, but they are not beneficial anymore for my life, for my personal life, and not for the life,
Collective life.
for the collective.
Exactly. I think a lot of the veil is dropping between self and other, self and planet, self ultimately and universe. That's a big step for most people.
Right.
But we're seeing the consequences of our actions, even our smaller local actions. Listen, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Believe it or not, we've used our time. It seems
It's unbelievable.
possible. Exactly. But we just began.
Yeah.
But I really want to just honor your work. It's beautiful, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you for your work.
Absolutely, sure. Give your website so people can easily get it.
So there are more websites. My main website is Thomas, HUEBL.com, thomasHubl.com, and another one is innerscience.info.
Okay.
And another one is celebrate-life.info. So these are the main things that we're doing.
Got it. Well, we'll put that on the show as well. So.
Right.
Dankeschön. It's definitely
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. This is Mitchell J. Rabin for a Better World. Thanks so much for joining us, and please give us your feedback. It helps us grow and evolve ourselves here at A Better World. So again, thanks for joining us. Visit us at www.abetterworld.net, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.